So on today's episode, we're going to talk about one of these do-it-yourself AC charge kits and how one of these could actually end up costing you more money, hundreds, maybe even thousands, if you try to fix your AC yourself. Welcome to the Pit Stop Tire Pros, where we show you how to repair, fix, and keep your vehicle looking good for years to come. So if you want to learn more about your vehicle, consider subscribing. So why would we tell you not to use one of these readily available AC charge kits that you can get from your local store? Well, let's explain a little bit about how the AC system works first. Your AC system uses a gas called Freon. Now this is the fluid that keeps the air cold going through the vents in the cabin of your vehicle. Now each vehicle is slightly different. Each system is slightly different in capacity. So each system or each vehicle system is going to take a different amount of Freon per vehicle in order to properly charge it. So right here, this is a AC machine. This is a Robinair air conditioning machine. And this machine is used to recover or recycle refrigerant out of a vehicle. It also has a vacuum system that pulls negative air pressure from your system, which eliminates the ambient air inside your system, which will also pull all of the water vapor that's in the air out of the system, which is corrosive, but it also makes the system more efficient by having all the oxygen pulled out of the system. So our procedure that we normally do on a vehicle is we hook up that machine to the vehicle, and if that machine has any pressure in the system, we'll see right away on our gauges. If the system has no Freon or no pressure, we will see no pressure on our gauges. Once we recognize that there is pressure in the system, we will recover or recycle that refrigerant out of the vehicle system and into our machine. Once we safely pull that Freon out of the vehicle and not into the ambient air, we do what's called a vacuum test on the vehicle. Now that vacuum pressure will actually pull air out of the system, and it also does what's called a leak test at the same time to make sure that there is no leaks in the system so that the Freon can leak out. Once the machine pulls the vacuum pressure out of your AC system, at that point in time, it's also pulling your oil, your compressor oil, out of the system as well. So once we have the vacuum test completed, what we do then is typically we will add the amount of compressor oil that was taken out of the system back into the system, and that oil that we add will have a dye which detects leaks under a black light. That oil is also going to relubricate your compressor as well. Once the oil is added back into the system, we can properly recharge the high side of your AC with the proper amount of Freon needed for that system, and that's typically within a minimum and maximum range. Now this machine is accurate to the tenth and hundredths of pounds or kilograms needed for your vehicle system, and that window between maximum and minimum is usually very small. Now this bottle only has 20 ounces of fluid in there, 17 ounces of Freon and 3 ounces of their additives, which we'll go into that later. So this bottle is not specific to any type of vehicle. It only has the certain amount of Freon in the system with a certain charge or pressure added to the bottle to push it into the system. So this is a very generic way, not a specific way, of recharging your vehicle's AC system. Now if you have a dual AC system or if you have a front and rear AC system, those systems are quite large, sometimes over 2 pounds in some cases. And again, this is only 20 ounces of fluid, so this isn't enough to charge the system. So that still leaves you short and still leaves you with no AC, because you have to be within that specific range for the system to work. The other caveat to having this bottled system is that you're not pulling any vacuum on your AC system. So it is still possible that the air is still present inside of your AC system, which again is going to cause corrosion and also AC inefficiencies. Now lastly, but most importantly, most store-bought AC charge kits have leak sealer on them. Now leak sealer, which is intended to seal any leaks in your system, can also go through your accumulator, your receiver dryer, your orifice tube, and your compressor, causing the system to actually clog. Now in the attempt to fix any leaks in the system, it's well intended, but could also end up ruining the system as well because of that leak sealer. So now that poses an issue for us using a professional machine. We don't want any of that leak sealer going into our machine, because that leak sealer will also circulate through the machine as well. And that sealer could lead to damage on our machine that we use on several cars to charge their systems. So in that case that somebody uses one of these charge kits with a sealer in it, well, in that case, their system is completely contaminated and no longer viable to hook up to our professional machine to do a simple charge. In that case, the main components of the system will need to be replaced and flushed with an AC flush system in order to be properly repaired and recharged. This includes the compressor, the accumulator, the orifice tube, and the receiver dryer, as well as putting an AC flush through your evaporator and your condenser to completely get all out as much of that sealer as possible. And the price for repairing all those components and the flush can go from several $100s to into the thousands. So unless you're aware of the risk of using one of these do-it-yourself AC recharge kits over the counter, I would advise that you think about those risks prior to using one of these instead of going to a professional shop for what could be just a simple AC recharge. So instead of taking that risk, take your vehicle to your trusted mechanic where they will inspect, diagnose, and charge your system with the proper amount of Freon to make sure that your system is running properly and keeps you clear of those costly repairs. So like this video if you learned something new, subscribe so you don't miss any of our new videos, and we'll see you in the next one.